How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Down to Earth YouTube channel. This is UAP Tuesday. Now, I know for some of you guys, this is a brand new show for you. You come here to the Down to Earth channel and you see my daily videos. Well, this all started because we did an hour-long, sometimes hour and a half long podcast on my main channel that started really the fascination with this whole topic and starting to have more conversations about what the hell's going on, just from the kind of the average person's point of view. And it was myself and my co-host Mark Riley, who some of you, I guess, will meet today. And we decided, because that channel, that one it was on, was primarily movie, TV, pop culture conversation, and it was doing very well over there. But the idea was that, I don't know, maybe this is we just have so much going on the Down to Earth channel every day. It just makes more sense to have everything here. So that's what we're going to do. So every Tuesday, UAP Tuesdays is now going to be on this channel. So that's why you're getting it here today. So make sure, if you haven't already done it, subscribe, because we have a lot to talk about, man. There's more conversation with both Burchett and Luna about what's going on with the public hearing, coming off of the disappointing yet predictable news that Robert Garcia's amendments to the Schumer bill was shot down. There's more and more pushing towards disclosure from the community. And one of those things, the New Paradigm Institute, as I talked about on my news piece yesterday, put together an ad to talk about, to try to get CNN to talk about it to both Biden and Trump at the debate coming up in like a week from now. Will it happen? I don't know. There's also some talk about the Spielberg's movie, and it looks like Emily Blunt is going to be in that film. The question I had when I talked about this in the first place is, Spielberg is very into it. He's very knowledgeable about it. How much of factual stuff that's been going on recently is going to play into the movie at all? And how much does Emily Blunt know about it? And will she know more after shooting this particular movie? So there's more, going on with the topic in general. There's stuff that Jason Sands talked about with Grusch. There's, as we always talk about, because we like to bring it up, there was talk about apparently, there could be aliens that are walking among us. And it has been for years. I don't know. What do I know? All I know is that we're doing a show here today with me and Mark Riley. So once again, hit that button. We are on Apple Podcast. We're on Spotify. We're on all of the platforms. So let's do it. It's myself. It's Mark Riley. It's Down to Earth, UAP Tuesday. Here we go. All right, here we are, Down to Earth, Kristian Harloff on UAP Tuesday, joined by my co-host, Mark Yodius Riley. Hello, Mark. How are you?
Hi, Kristian. How are you today?
I like this
fine day.
I like the setup. It's a little more colorful. I like that.
It's just temporary.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
All right.
Yeah. I hate a white background.
Me too.
Just a white wall.
Yeah.
And so I just put some images there, pictures there. I'm moved as well. So here's a new setup.
Well, you don't need to tell me about it. I had a prison wall back there, and my wife came in here and decorated the whole thing. So it looks pretty good now. But
yeah, this is just a regular wall. But
congratulations.
Got me and my daughter over there. So
I love it. All right, so we have much to talk about, my friend. Much to talk about.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
The first thing,
a lot of good stuff.
A lot of good stuff. It's funny because I was going back and forth with our mutual friend Pavel, and he was saying, well, I don't know if it seems to kind of slow down on the political side of things. And I said, I don't know. There's a lot that's really going on right now, especially on the political side of things. The question is, what will happen, if anything, as we always ask the question. And I guess before I even get into some of the newer topics, one of the things I talked about last week that I don't think I've gotten your opinion on yet is, we talked about Robert Garcia, and he put forward this the amendments to try to get it passed. It's 30 or 40 pages, whatever it was, to the Schumer and Rounds bill, and we were skeptical about it. Other people thought it could happen, and it was essentially voted no by a lot of Republicans. And what got me upset about this is because you and I have made it very, very clear to one another when we did this show. This is not a one side of the aisle versus the other side of the aisle show. It's not a one side of the aisle versus another side of the aisle topic. This is if we think it is what you and I think it is. This is the biggest story in human history that should be a unifying thing and not a party thing. And Burchett, who we have been a fan of when it has come to what he's doing for this topic, disappointed me in his comments last week about, well, it might not happen because he's a Democrat and is throwing the party system into it. And then sure as hell, I'm sure he had something to do with it also. It doesn't happen. And it's like, here we go again. It's no different than any other topic. But am I wrong, or am I being skeptical, or what do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I don't think you're wrong. I think that if there's a tool that any party can use to politicize something and start a friction, they use it. And I'm afraid that this topic can and will be used politically, and I don't like seeing it, because you're right. You said it all at the top. This is the biggest story, the biggest thing to happen in human history. If we get disclosure, if we learn that we are not alone, if it legit is some kind of non-human NHI, if it's stuff, if it's, we don't know it's NHI, but we as reported by David Grusch and all these different people that we talk about endlessly on this show, that it's non-human. These are things that can bring us together, that should bring us together, to pull everybody together across the aisles, however you want to say it, and go, okay, let's work together and figure this out. There's a lot of stories that you sent me that we could talk about that would be mind-blowing,
right,
if they were true. But if we just start with, what is that? What is that? And we work together on that, I think we can.
Well, that's the frustrating thing, right? Because when you hear when you look at both, you take those two guys, for example, Garcia and Burchett, during the hearing last year, they were on the same page and they were saying the same thing, and they were all asking the questions that needed to be asked, essentially what you just said, and that's, what the hell's going on out there? What are the pilots seeing? And Burchett has been asking the right questions about, where's that money going? Where's that money going? Where are these secret programs? Where's it going? He's asking the right questions. But when you start going, well, he can't ask the question because he doesn't have the same, he's not going to vote for the same guy that I'm going to vote for. That's where we run into problems. And I think that, when you start to knock heads against each other in the Senate, it's like, okay, well, we have our plan. We want our plan to go through, and we want to be the party that does it. It's going to be problematic overall. And I think that goes for both sides, no matter what it might be. But
nothing gets done.
Nothing gets done.
When they start fighting, and we see it, take away this issue, and wherever you land in the political spectrum of things, if you look at what's happening in the past year or 2 years or 3 years, whatever your version of things are, there's a lot of just stalemates that just grind to a halt, because people are fighting and bringing up nonsense in the middle of people talking or whatever, saying, I'm going to motion this, I'm going to motion. It's like, I don't know what's going on with our government right now in most cases.
It's chaos. That's what's going on.
Both sides.
It's chaos.
It's chaos. Yeah. It's a circus. And that is unfortunate.
But on the positive side of things, when I tell you, somebody who I had a chance to have him on the show before, and I'd like to have him on again, Matt Laslo is really he's got his nose on the ground. He's making sure to get the right interviews here. And he continues to do it. And he's speaking of Burchett, speaking of Luna. He talked to both of them. And here's a little bit of what the new exclusive from Escapolo says. All right, so this is a new exclusive. UAP co-chairs both Luna and Burchett. They said the next UAP hearing is likely to come after the August recess. Luna says that their exchange with the Energy Secretary did not change focus, and the next hearing, which again I think will be on USOs, and there's more to the whole thing. That's to me the big take out of it. You can listen to the interview and you can check it out with links in the description there. This was something they've been talking about and has been bouncing back and forth, and there was that conversation with Gillibrand, speaking of that now, and maybe look, this is or Gillibrand. I don't know. Every time I say it, someone goes, oh, "It's actually pronounced Gillibrand."
Gillibrand.
Gillibrand. All right. So,
Guylanderbrand.
right.
Who knows?
Well, so I think that, and let's play devil's advocate from the last story for a second, right?
Okay.
Because Gillibrand is a Democrat, and it seems like some people think. No, there's no complete confirmation to this, but some people think she might be kind of compromised when it comes to Arrow, and that she is kind of essentially now in the kind of an agent for Arrow, and it's always kind of pro Arrow, pro Kirkpatrick, pro all these things, and that she wants to run the hearing. And you and I spoke about her last week, and we said something feels off, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if that all comes out right around the same time with Gillibrand, what she's trying to do, and then you have Burchett and Luna going, well, wait a minute. She's representing this side of it. Maybe, and I'm not saying there's merit to it, but saying, well, who else can we trust now on that side? Is Garcia compromised now? Is this? And I'm just saying that maybe that comes to play. I still think it's the wrong approach to have, but I don't know if maybe they're trying to keep things closer to the vest now, because you look at this where they're trying to get this thing happening in August. And it also makes more sense because last time Matt Laslo spoke to Tim Burchett, he mentioned that he wanted to have Tim Gallaudet testify. So that would make more sense, obviously, with everything with that. He's like the prime guy you want to talk to about when it comes to USOs. So it seems like that's the meetings that both Burchett and Luna are probably having with one another to say, all right, let's do this. Let's now explore this and bring this more into the fray, where I know that it was. I mean, Attack Peter had mentioned it to us a couple times, but I think that it was Darcy Weir's movie, and then seeing Tim Gallaudet that I was like, wait, they're in the water too? What's happening? You know what I mean? I didn't know. Right. I didn't know enough, and to the extent I didn't know. And then you hear all this stuff about how pilots have seen it flying into the ocean, disappear into the ocean. How much of the ocean have we really even explored? Dude, I was walking at the beach the other day, looking at how big, just the portion of the beach that I was at. And I'm like, there's so much uncharted territory. Who knows what could be with the right technology where you could like stash stuff.
Yeah. Maybe we've been looking in the wrong direction all this time.
Right.
You know, we're like, what's going on? It's all been down there. I saw something on Twitter, X, whatever the hell it is, the other day where somebody was in a boat at night and there was like lights. I think you sent it to me maybe, and we just never covered it. And it was just like lights coming from the bottom and they're moving. And you're like, okay, what is that?
Right.
What is that? But we know just how far down. Do we actually? But I think of like the Titanic where it went to, and there's like actual scale images that you can look at. There's like 5 Empire State Buildings down, and you think of that incredible depth,
right?
And then that's not even scratching the surface.
Not even scratching the surface. We don't even know
because we can't even go. We don't have the technology to go that deep.
No,
otherwise we'll implode.
Right.
So. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we are missing something, and if we have all these accounts that they're coming out of the water, going in the water, whatever it may be.
Yeah,
it's something to look into.
Well, I do think it's important.
Consider.
I think it's important for them to show to tackle this. I don't know if the whole entire hearing should be USOs when there's other things out there than there's other information. If that's the only thing they're focusing on, if it was, I'd like a major portion of it to be on USOs, sure, but and then it also then if this is one of the reasons I would really love to talk to Tim Burchett also and ask, because my follow-up question to that is, well, the last time you spoke to Matt Laslo, it was you're pretty confident that a lot of the David Grusch whistleblowers, the 40 witnesses that he spoke to, some of those would come forward, and I don't think those are USO related. I think those are other people who worked in the reverse engineering and where he got this information from. Is Carl Nell going to speak at this hearing? Like that.
Right.
It's like, how major of a hearing is it going to be?
Well, yeah, and I think you mentioned those names and the whistleblowers. I think we start there before we start diving in, pardon the pun, with other areas of UAP activity. It's important to get disclosure. I think it's baby steps because, and they talked about this. We've talked about this so many times, Kristian, on like the idea of just unveiling what it could be. might take some doing. We might need to do some slow rollouts here
Right.
for the effects on what it could be for the human race. Being like, okay, hey, everybody, aliens exist. There's an underwater base of aliens that have been living among us for, a millennium, and our doom is coming in 2029. Thank you, everyone. We have to go slow.
I know.
And
My dad called
I
me,
think
dude.
it really does start with the disclosure and bringing these whistleblowers forward.
Just to touch on what you just said there, and even in the beginning when you were talking about some of these wild claims that came up in like the last week, and I can't, and you guys can tell me in the comments section, but there were people like high level quality people, and not just people who were just like, oh yeah, that guy. I mean, there's one report from like Harvard, there's another report from somebody else that the theory is that there are NHI living among us, that have lived among us, that are able to take human form, all these things that get into so science fiction stuff.
Yeah.
That it's like, we haven't even gotten to the place where we've said, hey, there's a reverse engineering program where we have technology. And then it's like, oh yeah, and by the way, They Live might be a biography. And
right.
You know what I mean? And it's
That's
like
a big leap.
It's just a lot to put out there right away. And
Right.
and as I say to you every time we come with one of these stories that pop up, it's like we can't say nope, not true. It's hard for our brains to say, yeah, that one that guy at the deli seemed a little off the other day.
Right.
It's like, so
let me put on these special glasses
Right.
and check them out.
Right.
Yeah, alien.
But but you know how the algorithm works, and you start paying attention to that stuff. The next thing I know is another thing that popped up from this video from like 1994, where this other scientist was talking about how that the human race is essentially looked upon as like a farm, and in a way, but not farming in as far as death and all that stuff, and using the matrix, not that, but more so of like our energy and other things and our consciousness and manipulation of consciousness and manipulation of it. And it's just like, I don't pass anything off anymore, but I still am like, let's just figure out if anybody has worked on these machines first. Please.
Right.
That's all I want to know first. I just want to know. Yeah. It's like that big warehouse that has all these things and all these people are working on. Let's just talk about that first. Because there's that Russel Crow video we'll show in a little bit. There's these other things. There's tons of stuff that is now coming out. My dad called me, Riley, yesterday. He's like, "You see this video? These aliens walking around with us?" And I'm like, "My dad saw that." And I was like, and my dad can't find things on regular television, much less on the internet, and he found it somehow. And I'm
How
like,
did he? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how he found it.
He probably watched this. He probably watched Down to Earth somehow. Has the algorithm?
You give him too much. You're giving him too much credit.
Okay.
You give him too much credit. My dad still calls me to try to figure out how to work the cable box. But
my dad butt dials me constantly,
Right.
and has no idea who's doing it.
I don't know how he got it, but he was just, but my dad wasn't saying it in a way like, this is because he watched the whole thing of the interview of the person. And he wasn't saying it like, oh, this guy's crazy stuff. He was like, who knows? And it was,
Right.
and so that conversation alone.
It's for me. It's what about Bob, and it's baby steps.
Yeah,
and
it's baby steps.
Baby steps out the door, baby steps down the street, baby
Yep.
steps onto the bus, whatever it may be. I think I'm very, very interested in, the relationship or lack thereof with Arrow. I'm very interested in the whistleblowers and what David Grusch had said that we
Right.
covered last week when he says that nobody actually talked to Arrow, none of my people or none of the people that I
Right.
know of.
Or want to.
That
They don't
kind
feel
of-
trusted.
yep.
They don't feel trusted.
Right. And when you are discussing like the trust issues and what the government may or may not know, that is kind of where I believe we should go. And then you even said it kind of, Kristian, with like, reverse engineering. What do we got? What are we doing
Right.
with technology before we make the leap to reptile aliens living among us eating, animals, for breakfast?
Well, the thing that I saw that instilled this back like 94 or whatever it was, and the idea what was kind of eerie and made sense when you started to kind of dive into it, if you do want to dive into that, was that you said, like, look, we have cows on farms, right? And we just pay attention to the cows. We watch the cows do their things. If the cows started to pay attention to what was going on around them, and learning a little bit more and having a consciousness of the understanding of how this all worked and what we were doing and how to and understand exactly what we were doing, we would have a problem.
Right.
And it's like, we're asking a lot of questions these days. I mean, look at this show.
We are. Is this are we like the Truman Show?
I know.
Are we finally going, wait a minute.
Right.
What?
Right.
Right? It's like, wait, I just saw, I mean, it was probably a trick of the mind and maybe a spotlight or something, but I was walking the dogs the other night and I thought I caught something, a light just flash by in the sky. And I went, nah.
Right. I know. That's especially when you're doing this.
Is that an alien adjusting the light above?
Right. It is. I mean, yeah. I mean, who knows? Who knows? But the overall,
it's fascinating.
It's fascinating. The overall hearing itself, though, I do think that it looks like there's a push for it from a lot of different places to get this thing moving in summertime. And it looks like they said after recess in August. I believe I believe that is when it's going to take place. I do believe that. The question is, will there be as much of a unity between the parties and the others? Not even just that, because that's obviously a very important thing. But the other thing that makes me nervous that you and I spoke about last week was that, who's going to be running this thing? Is it going to be the Burchett and Lunas? Because remember, Burchett was supposed to run this thing. He was supposed to be the main guy and running the whole hearing. He was a big force in the hearing, but he wasn't running it. I forget who they had running it, but he wasn't running it. And the question is, who are they going to have run it? Mm-hmm. Who are they going to let speak? Who are they? How much power are they going to let Arrow and DOD have about what witnesses can come forth and what can't? Because remember that one of the things Burchett talked about when it came to the last hearing was that there were supposed to be so many other witnesses, but NASA, this is from Burchett's mouth, that said NASA called those people and said, no, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's TBD on who's running this thing right now. I think the interesting thing is saying that it could happen after the August recess, and that kind of, we've been talking a lot about when it could land, and at one point we were talking July, and now August. Great. I think it can happen. I think it will happen.
Will it be significant, Riley? That's the other question. Will it be significant?
I see. Here we go.
Will it be significant?
Are we going to talk again? Like, this is us every show talking around this point.
Yeah, but and now Burchett's making the same point. It's like people are not going to, people like me, people like you, people watching this show right now are not going to be satisfied, even if they do a USO thing. And Tim Gallaudet, I believe, is one of the most credible people that you can speak to. He's a former Rear Admiral. He is highly respected. But someone saying in front of anybody right now, yes, we have witnesses that have seen things zip by. We have seen things that have these capabilities to do this. We have seen this, great. Where's the proof? That's what is going to come out. It's the same thing that happened in the first one. The first one was more so going, whoa, wait a minute. There's hearings on UFOs, and who's this guy? Grusch? Wait, what? What's happening? And it opened people's eyes a little bit more, but you can't keep doing that every time. And this is the point that you and I make every time, but I think that now Burchett's also realizing it, and it's becoming more and more of a thing where you have more and more leaders talking about it. And that's why I want to transition to what we talked about yesterday on this channel. And that's what the New Paradigm Institute is putting out there right now about the plea to CNN to make sure that they ask at least a question to both Biden and Trump about UAPs. And here is that ad.
Hey, CNN. We want to see UFO and UAP disclosure and transparency brought up in the debates. It's time. Let's get it.
CNN, I'm urging you to include UAP disclosure as a topic in the upcoming presidential debates.
I am reaching out to express my interest in CNN, including in the upcoming presidential debate, the topic of UFOs and UAPs.
Hello, CNN. My name is Paul. I'd like them to bring up the UAP discussion. Thank you. I do think that disclosure should be a topic for this year's presidential debates.
CNN moderators and presidential candidates, we're calling on you to cover this UFO phenomena in the presidential debates.
Americans deserve to hear CNN ask our presidential candidates in a serious fashion whether they will declassify high-level intelligence assessments regarding the possible nature and origin of unidentified anomalous phenomena.
Hi CNN, US citizen here. I would like to request that you actually include the UAP disclosure as a topic in the presidential debate this year.
I am urging CNN to include in the upcoming June 27th presidential debate a question about extraterrestrial life and the UFO phenomena.
Please include the topic of UAP disclosure in the upcoming presidential debate.
I urge CNN to include UAP disclosure as a question in the upcoming presidential debates.
CNN, I urge you to make UAP disclosure a topic in the upcoming presidential debate taking place on June 27th, 2024.
Please include UAP disclosure in the upcoming presidential debates. It is the single most important topic of our generation.
Hi CNN, would you please include UAP disclosure into the questions for the presidential debate?
I would like to urge Dana Bash and Jake Tapper from CNN to ask the presidential candidates about UAP disclosure and transparency.
Implications are too profound to ignore. Our taxpayer dollars are funding these black budget programs that involve extraterrestrial life and extraterrestrial technology.
This is an issue that's critical for public knowledge, government accountability and transparency, and national security. It is paramount that the candidates address this topic directly.
This is a very serious topic that has profound implications on humanity.
The U.S. government has finally acknowledged these objects are real, and it's time for them to level with us about what they think they might represent.
The intentions of the current and the next president regarding ending this truth embargo must be part of the upcoming presidential debates. Thank you.
Okay, so you see that is a very, very serious ad from the New Paradigm Institute to make sure that there is a question that is asked by Dana Bash and Jake Tapper from CNN to the candidates. And I think it is great that they're doing it. I think it goes nowhere. I think it goes nowhere.
You think so?
I think it goes nowhere. But as I said, though, Riley, on the show, I think it's necessary. I'm glad that they did it. I think that they should, I wish that there was more people who did it. I hope it gets tweeted all over the place. There is no world where CNN is going to tell Jake Tapper to do it. There's no world that, and what I don't want to see is another Chris Christie, I'm the guy that gets a UFO question. Like that stuff. I like that. I don't want the audience laughing in the background when someone says it, because the people in the audience are not going to be people that are making that ad. They're going to be people that aren't getting the coverage in their daily televisions because the news networks aren't covering it. So to them, it's going to be, this is they're going to ask him about Spielberg's next movie. I'm going to go get a coffee, and it's like that's what I worry about here. I think it's necessary to make it, but I don't know. Do you feel differently?
No, I mean I was very happy to see that it's out there, and my mind wanders and I go, that would just be an awesome thing to do, to have the candidates actually comment on this. It would bring awareness. It would bring more people to tune in and look and go wet and ask questions. But then the reality sets in. They're not going to ask that because there's so much going on. Right. I referenced earlier the circus that is our United States government.
It's going to be about,
it's going to continue to do their big top parade.
It's going to be about Trump's trials. It's going to be about Hunter Biden. It's going to be about all this stuff that means nothing in the long run. And and if you had that, because did you see? Trump was on with Logan Paul. Like last week, and he asked him about UFOs. And he asked him about UFOs when CNN won. And Trump pretty much was like, was given the things that he knows. There's alluded to that there's a lot more than meets the eye. So, that's something that just happened on a very popular podcast. bring up and let's say you're on the opposite side of it, and you're Jake Tapper, and you don't think that this is you think it's, oh, here we go. Here's this guy that not only has he gotten himself into some legal trouble, but now he's talking about how UFOs could be the thing. Trump, tell me more about the UFOs, and let Trump go a little more into the UFOs. Biden is hand in hand talking to Schumer all of the time. Schumer is the guy who is saying, we need disclosure. So how much does Biden know? They both know more, and there needs to be at least one question. There should be, but there won't be.
There should be, there won't be. It's not going to make. They're going to. You mentioned it, the trials, the Hunter Biden thing, probably immigration, probably,
which is all stuff that they should talk about
absolutely,
but not
I don't
immigration stuff.
The
trial or right. The immigration wars,
immigration, gun reform,
all that stuff.
The bump stock that was just reversed by the Supreme Court.
Sure,
there's a lot of different things, right?
Sure,
that they're going to get into.
It shouldn't all be about UFOs.
Yeah, but I would love a legit, straightforward, like asking about disclosure. There is a movement happening right now in Congress that is gaining momentum.
Yeah.
Mr. President, former Mr. President, however you want to say it, what do you believe? What do you believe? What could be said?
Even more about, I would say along these lines, it seems to be there is a highly decorated. If I'm Jake Tapper, there was a highly decorated intelligence officer who last year in front of Congress made claims that we have a reverse engineering program, that we have found NHI bodies, that there are other things, that there are higher level people that have been discussed, and there is a heavy push from Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer about disclosure, and there are attempts to find out more about what we have from these private companies like Lockheed Martin and other things. What did you know during your term? What do you know during your term? What is there about UAP disclosure? And is this something that is going to be something that you tackle in your next term? If you are reelected, what would you do? That's it.
I think you should be the moderator for the debate.
That's it. It's that simple.
No, yes, that would be fantastic to see what they would say, how they would respond, and again to get some more awareness out here.
Do you know what would happen, Riley?
The hearings.
Do you know what would happen if that question like that was asked? Both of their earpieces would shorten out. That's what would happen. Yeah, the men in black would come in and shut it down. Shut it all down.
There's such different personalities. Part of me wants to see that circus live on air to see how they would answer it. But anyways, that's beside the point. It would do so much for bringing some awareness to the masses that will watch this, looking for legitimate answers on gun reform, immigration, yada 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 down the line, right? Because then that could get possibly some small percentage of people going, there are hearings on this, because they don't know this. Like you mentioned your dad going down the rabbit hole talking about aliens walking among us. I mean, my dad didn't even know about the hearings, the legit hearings happening out there. And when I mentioned both Democrats and Republican names to him working together on this, he perked up even more and went, "What?"
Well, that's the importance, but that's the importance of what you just said there, I think, is really why this is the most important. It's not the answer that you're going to get from either Biden or Trump on that, because they're going to give you something. They're going to say, well, when I was there was classified information of things that that we need to find out a little bit more. We believe our pilots. We believe this. It'll be a very stock answer that whatever it might be, but it'll still be an answer, that which is important all in itself. But the more important thing is inside of that, if neither one of them laughs it off, then the average person who's watching, wait a minute, they were talking about what now? UFO? Wait, what? Yes, then that is the news coverage that I've been talking about, and that is why it ain't going to be asked. No, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
They could talk around. I mean, bringing up the hearings, bringing up the disclosure, bringing up the call, and the Congress working together in trying to get the bill passed. what say you, Mr. President? How do you believe in that kind of stuff? It's like, yes, I know that there is something going on, that there is a disclosure happening, that people are working together.
We're trying to find the answers out.
Personally, I believe it, and there is something out there, and we need disclosure, and my administration will work hard to try to get that, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, or I mean, look,
never happened.
The other thing is when you're asking, like, they asked, I think it was on Fox News, they asked Trump straight out if he would declassify the Kennedy stuff, he would declassify the stuff, ask the same question, but say, would you declassify and make more disclosure to find out exactly what's happening about what, and is this technology? Talk about the flyovers at Langley. Talk about those things, and don't make it about NHI. Talk about, like, what are these things that are flying over that we don't know what they are? Will there be more investigation into that, and will the public be in it? So I don't know. I wonder, and I ask you guys, what do you think? Do you think that it's going to happen at all? Do you think they're going to ask a question? Do you think it's going to be vastly ignored like we think it is here? I hope I'm wrong, because I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, wait a minute. When Christie was asked that question, someone asked him, and I was like, yeah, I think it was News Nation, which the one network that actually does cover it, and even though, albeit not as much as they used to, but they still cover it. But that's that. Then we have some other things to talk about. I mentioned Grusch. We're going to get into some stuff that Jason Sands mentioned with him in just a moment here. But before I do, I wanted to let you guys know, as I've mentioned to you many times over, we don't have a Patreon yet. We're working on it. But one of the things that you guys have been doing to support this show is when we have sponsors and I say, hey, we get a good sponsor for you guys, please check it out. And you do it. That helps the show. It helps us go, helps us keep going. And it allows us to fund the show. So if you want to help us out, listen to one of our great sponsors that we have right now. I love HelloFresh. Do me a favor, ditch the meal planning woes and dive into HelloFresh's biggest menu yet. They have over 50 recipes and even more market items to choose from every single week. Discover limited time seasonal recipes from HelloFresh's Taste of Summer series like Old Bay shrimp and sausage or grilled steak lettuce wraps. They have so much more. I love HelloFresh. I've been using them for a while. And the stuff that they send, it really is just, I like seafood and fish, shrimp. I make fajitas. I do my own thing. You can follow their menus, or their recipes rather, the stuff that they have. You can make your own thing. You do little variations. And it's exactly why I love them. Head on over to HelloFresh.com/DTE apps and you get free appetizers for life. One appetizer item per box while subscription is active. That's great. Free appetizers for life at HelloFresh.com/DTE apps. You'll thank me for it. Super fresh, super tasty, very easy, very convenient. It's HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit, baby. As I said, I lost some weight, man. I lost about almost 20 pounds. And it's also because I've been eating well. So the link is in the description, and I always pin it as the first comment. Okay, let's move over and let's talk about Jason Sands. Okay, now I don't necessarily know what to think of Jason Sands, except the fact that when you hear about certain people, whether it's Jeremy Corbell, whether it's Coulthard, whoever it is, they all, and James Fox, they all say he is who he says he is, but it's in the way that he came out to the public on, Twitter Spaces, and then some of the claims that he had a bit wild and things of that nature. So he doesn't have the same kind of oomph that Grusch had, and I do think it is, if this guy would have shown up, if Coulthard would have interviewed him on a News Nation exclusive, I think it would have carried more weight, personally, because I saw somebody push back on that once and go, what does it matter as long as you're coming out and talking about it? Because there is it's my whole point with legacy media. There's something about a legitimacy that if you go on a show, like, and I have no ego about this. If Tim Gallaudet goes on my show and says the things that he said on my show, and then he goes on Ross Coulthard, 2 months later, a month later, people are going to go, oh, did you see Gallaudet on what he said on Coulthard? Because Coulthard has earned that rep.
Yeah, exactly.
He's earned that rep. He's done it. Twitter Spaces hasn't earned that rep. I haven't earned that rep. I mean, I'm glad that people will watch my stuff, and I'd love to get the interviews out there. But you're going to get more legitimacy when you're doing big interviews on different things than you're going to do on Twitter Spaces. But nonetheless, Riley, he came out and he said this about he said a lot of things again, but here's one of the things he said specifically about Grusch. All right, this clip was clipped out from Skyfire News, and here it is.
Okay, are you one of the 40 whistleblowers that David Grusch mentions?
I thought I was, but after David got pissed at me for coming out publicly, now I'm just one of 80. So I don't know what to think.
Now,
why is David Grusch annoyed that you actually came out publicly when he came out publicly?
David and the rest of the guys were I guess, upset with me was because I didn't realize that they had all these plans, okay? And I think I shattered some of that in their mind, and that for some reason I was either going rogue or hadn't thought things through and all this other stuff. And maybe they're right. Maybe I didn't think it fully through, and it did do some kind of damage to their plan, but I don't think it did, actually. I think it may be actually coming around to help them because they seem to be coming out on media spaces themselves now and stuff like that. So they know who I am. Everybody has talked to me. The only thing I can't produce for them is the same thing I can't produce for Congress, a UFO. I don't have one strapped to my back. Sorry, guys. I can't do that. Can I drag the guy out of the desert from my past in the 1990s? Hell no. I can't do that for you either, dudes.
All right, so that pretty much says exactly what we just talked about, and that's that David Grusch and the rest of the crew was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this on Twitter Spaces? We have a plan. Why are you going on some guy's Twitter space and talking about the things that are going to make more of an impact when you do it here? And he's like, well, they got pissed at me, and I don't know, maybe rightfully so. Maybe I didn't think it through. No, dude, you didn't.
No,
you didn't
at all.
No,
this made me so mad. I can't tell you. I really, it's whether he's legitimate and everything is true of what he's saying, or that it just comes off as a sideshow.
I think he's legitimate. I do. I think he's legit. I just think that he's one of those guys. Like, you've had people who are legitimate doing certain things, and you're like, what are you doing? Why would you make that move? What are you doing? And it's like,
it's hard. It's part of this. Most of this, in some cases, is the stigma behind it. And how much you even mentioned it in our conversation about asking at the presidential debate about this, and when Chris Christie was asked at the Republican debates, and how there can be people that groan, roll their eyes, and go, "Oh my God!" Is we're talking about UFOs and little green men. That stigma is carried with you when this stuff is getting out there in a certain way. And I don't think the stigma helps when you go on Twitter Spaces or X Spaces or whatever the heck it is. And his claims.
When you debut it, though, when you debut it on Twitter Spaces, it's not a matter of going on. I want to make that clear. It's not a matter of going on Twitter Spaces at all, because Danny Sheehan goes on Twitter Spaces. There's tons of people who go on Twitter Spaces, but it's a matter if David Grusch would have debuted on Twitter Space, it does not have the impact. If Jason Sands would have come on Twitter Spaces after a big interview somewhere, and after they stuck with the plans,
when they're established as some kind of personality. I mean, if like Slash from Guns N' Roses says, "I'm going on Twitter Spaces right now to talk my career," people go, "Cool,"
right?
Because we know, and I don't know why I brought up Slash, but we know about his history, his legacy, what he's done in his life. We know nothing about this individual.
It could have been anybody. It could have been anybody, and then you have those questions. But like he says, it's like, the one thing that has come back around is people are going, no. He is who he says he is.
That's good.
But
great.
Yeah, and it's like, but it's always a big and then like James Fox is probably pulling his hair out because he's going to have him on his documentary and he's going to have the debut there. Grusch clearly had plans for him. The other people had plans for him, and as he said, he's like, I thought I was one of the 40, but now I'm one of the 80, whatever it might be. So it's like, so is now because they feel that Jason Sands has been a little bit tainted because of what you're talking about with a stigma behind it? Do they not put him in front of Congress during, the next hearing if they do it in August? So I think there's a lot more plans in general that you probably anytime you're working with, especially something like this, you're probably going, there's people that you're working with and you're like, okay, they get what's going on. And there's other people like, no, that guy did it again. But it's also, there's something that he said though, where it's like, if you, and I, it's a question that I would love to ask Grusch and say, okay, if you know that this guy, if you talk to him, if you haven't talked to him, if you know anything about this guy at all, that he is potentially a guy that could say anything anywhere else, don't you make it clear to him, don't speak to anyone at all. We're going to get Ross. We're going to get somebody else to talk to you. Don't do any public interviews. Don't do any tweets. Don't do any Facebook posts. Don't do anything. Just wait for us until we're going to really let you shine and get your whole story out there when you sit down with so-and-so or when you do this. It's like, wouldn't you make sure you say that to the guy, whether he's, you think he could go rogue or not?
Yeah, well, but that's what it felt like. That's what made me angry, was the feeling that he just kind of went out there and did his thing, kind of not ruining, because, I would say the Grusch and all those individuals that you've mentioned probably have some form of a plan in place. It felt like he went rogue, It felt like he went, and I just want to get it out there and not thinking it through.
You think it could it be like an attention thing where it's like, well, if Grusch got this kind of attention, maybe I could too, because I know more than Grusch and I've seen this and I know all this information.
That's what it felt like to me.
And it might be a little bit of that, and then it's maybe someone who doesn't understand that you're not going to get the same impact. Maybe everything that maybe it just seems so common sense to you and I. We're in media. We've been talking about stuff and how to publicity and stuff for the last 10, 15 years, whatever, longer. But maybe someone who doesn't do this and doesn't know this just goes, as long as maybe I go and I do this Twitter Spaces, it goes viral, and then people go, that's the next guy that's doing what he is, and he's getting his story out there. Maybe that's the mentality behind it. I don't know, but it's the wrong mentality, but it's not necessarily a mentality I can't see someone thinking of.
I want to get it out there too. I'm going to get a big poster board. I'm going to say aliens are among us, and I'm going to go stand next to the 405 entrance of Sepulveda.
Right.
Well, that is.
But for you saw it when you saw it in where was Minnesota?
No, Michigan.
Michigan. Sorry. When you had your experience in Michigan, if you were on the side of the highway saying, "I saw a UFO in Michigan," and that's all you said, and you're just standing there with a sign on your chest, people are like, "Is that guy all right?" But when you start to
get a wellness check,
but when you sit here and you elaborate a little bit more about the actual experience of what happened, and you go, "Oh, well, he was out there, he saw this." There were some same places. I think it was Jimmy Carter was around the same place when he saw it. It was Carter, right, over Ford? I can't remember. I always get Carter and Ford. Both of them saw something, but I just can't remember who was in Michigan. But anyway, I just think that it is also good to get this confirmation rather from Sands of like, yeah, they were all mad at me. It's like, yeah, they were.
Yeah, and it's like, I could see that, because when he came out, and let's take away the Twitter Spaces kind of stigma that they're in of that, but like his claims were a little bit more than Grusch, right? We're getting somewhere, because I want to believe everything Sands said. So, but that is in and of itself a problem when you combine it with Twitter Spaces, what he says, the kind of out there, and then you put it on Twitter Spaces. It's hard to take, and it's like when you sent me this news piece and I'm listening to him, I'm like, oh yeah, no kidding, they're mad at you,
right? Because especially if they had a plan. If they had a plan,
they have a plan. It was done well with Grusch, because there is legitimacy.
Yeah.
When you have people in a hearing under oath with credentials to back them up, military personnel that are that whenever it's military, I mean, I listen, because of what they stand for and who they are, and the oaths that they take to protect us. I mean, that's huge. And then you put them on record talking. It's hard. It's really hard to just go, this guy is a whistleblower.
Right.
He's on Twitter Spaces. Just believe it.
Right.
Just believe
and,
it.
Right.
You know?
And even whether you have people or not. So we'll see what happens in the long run with Jason Sands. But it looks like the other thing that I really took out of this is that there is more of a plan. There is more things that are, Grusch isn't just sitting. Grusch isn't just sitting by idle. There's things going on, and generally he came out. He made that statement against Arrow, that essentially that none of these people want to talk to Arrow because they don't feel trusted by him. So I think there's way more that we're going to find out. It's all like a really weird puzzle that just isn't locking up together just yet, but maybe it will. So I mentioned News Nation, and there was something from News Nation. And I'm not sure if this came out a little while ago or when it was, but I just saw recently that, again, Skyfire News just covered this, and let me play this clip.
Well, in the search for signs of intelligent life, there's a new study that may suggest we are not alone. A group of researchers have identified at least 7 stars that might be surrounded by advanced megastructures known as Dyson spheres. Dyson spheres, what? Emily Finn joins us now to tell us more about this. Emily, Dyson spheres, possible megastructures, all of this is a lot to take in.
It certainly is. It might freak you out, it might pique your interest. I mean, it's certainly interesting. The thought is that potential superior intelligent life might be creating buildings or devices to harness energy around their home stars or planets, creating these so-called alien megastructures. This newly released study published by a group of researchers in the monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society specifically looks at the theory around Dyson spheres and finds at least 7 stars might be surrounded by these alleged alien structures already. The aliens, I guess, have been busy. The group looked at infrared heat near stars located within 1,000 light years from Earth, a type of heat that can't otherwise be explained. It all stems from a theory from 1960s physicist Freeman Dyson, who believed if these structures in fact existed, scientists on Earth might be able to pick up on those infrared waves. News Nation spoke with Jana Levin, a professor of astronomy and physics at Barnard College and at Columbia University, who casts doubt on the possible alien origins of what these researchers are observing.
We are in a new era in terms of our understanding of how prevalent planets are and how planets are absolutely prolific in the universe. And that really suggests that life is prolific. The question is whether or not life can easily reach the phase of industrialization and building things and exploring space.
So this studies team had some pretty advanced tech. They used 2 active telescopes that are in space right now to conduct their research, but there is no conclusive evidence quite yet to determine what exactly is happening around these stars. Nick, do you think it might be alien structures?
I don't know if they're alien structures, but it seems as though the evidence suggests it's something that they want to figure out. Right?
Certainly something.
Yeah, definitely. Emily, thank you so much. A little bit creepy, though. Still for me.
A little bit.
So yeah, Dyson spheres and all that stuff, and it's like there's more and more stuff that comes out. This is just what we were talking about before, because you and I have talked about it many times on this show. The two of us, believe more so in the theory and idea of interdimensional anti-gravity travel and things of that nature, and bending time and space, to me is more likely than light travel. But then again, when you're looking at things of this nature, that if there's these things that we can't explain around these stars, that there's potential structures that are being built around these stars, it's like, does it all play into everything? Does it play into anti-gravity? Does it play into these types of technology? Does it play into, because there's other, if you watch these other reports of other things of like, that there isn't, who's to say that there's one species that's been here before, that there's these other things that have been here before? I don't know. But what do you make of this report in general?
You know, it's always, I always perk up when they can back it with legit, like, kind of science-based talk or research, or, you know, something that this has been going on since like the 60s, that, you know, there's researchers that are like, well, we've been kind of noticing this. And then we get to the structures in outer space, and I see, like, you know, Independence Day in my head, you know, with like, you know, these huge structures like coming towards Earth. It's another leap to get there for me, but it is, when it is grounded in some form of science.
But wait, what? That's what I was going to ask you. What's the leap? The leap is that it's necessarily bases, or I mean, because there's clearly something. It looks like from what they say, there's something there. It's just a question of what it is.
I guess the leap for me is when you say it's like space structures. You know what I mean? It's like when they classify it that way, where it goes into that like, wow, science fiction. You know, that's a leap for me, but if it's science based, like I said, I'm curious. It's hard for me to go from what we've been talking about, disclosure and this and that, to like space structures in space.
Yeah, I mean, it's because I think we need the first part of the puzzle solved first, and once that's solved, then it's like, because then because it'll be easier for you if you get through these conversations. Let's say let's go big at this next hearing. And there's scientific and physical proof and picture proof that without a shadow of a doubt that we have a reverse engineering program, that we have recovered spacecraft, we have recovered bodies, we are not alone. Then right away, your perception of this story changes dramatically.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you know, if we go back to like 1910 and we introduce the horseless buggy, you know, and then right next to that, we show them an iPhone. It's like, you know, there's the baby steps again. You know, I'm intrigued, and I can go there a lot more. I think you can too, Kristian. And I think a lot of people watching this, we can go there a lot more in our head and be like, yeah, because if we're talking about reverse engineering and we're talking about quantum physics and bending space and time, and it's not light travel, it's interdimensional, and maybe that it's this, and maybe it's you know, non-human intelligence underwater. You know, we've been talking a lot of possibilities. We've gone down a lot of rabbit holes, so we're already far ahead than your average. Like I always bring up my dad, somebody who'd be like, huh? You know, just shut up and play golf. That's my dad. We're a little bit more ahead of the curve, I guess you could say. So I like this story, and I'm like, yeah, that's really cool to see. Like, you know, that they've been talking about this since the 60s. That they have like kind of the space, the kind of the images from space, and what is this, and what could it be, and it's around a star, and you know, we are around a star, the sun, and it created life, and what could be, we don't know.
Yeah,
far out in the reaches of
I do.
Things,
I do feel there's going to be more information that comes out. I do feel that we're going to get more things that come in within the next couple of years, and I think. I agree. I think that kind of lends to the next story, and we're gonna finish with these two stories, and they're both obviously UAP related. But they're both also combined to the entertainment industry. And the first one is, I have to show this Russel Crow video. Check this out.
Yeah, this is great.
All right. Again, this clip comes from Skyfire News.
Well, currently, I'm reading a lot of stuff that says, you know, full contact in 2027. And there's all these people that used to work for NASA or all these other organizations out there talking about how our history as a species is really simply a series of genetic experiments to get us to where we are now. When you look around, there's a lot of proof that says that might actually be a thing. Anyway, that's what I'm...
It's a short clip, but nonetheless, it looks like there's a lot more people invested in this thing than we know. We just had Thomas Jane on recently. We know Paul Giamatti's into this thing. Russel Crow is now obviously reading up on it, talking about it. We've heard the 2027 thing before. We've heard the idea of full disclosure. We've heard of all that leading up to it. If you look at everything that the Soul Foundation wants to do and how they're leading up to this slow drip of disclosure and leading to 2027, and then the idea of these experiments that have been going on to get us to where we are, and there's a reason why we're at the place that we're at now. And Russel Crow saying, well, if you look around the evidence, it looks like that might be happening. Like, what does Russel Crow know that we don't?
I loved it. I know. I was watching this. I'm like, what do you know, Russell? What are you hinting at here? That's great. And whether or not, and like, is he just going down the rabbit holes like we are and asking the questions? And because he's Russel Crow, it makes, you know, a little bit more news. I don't know, but this is what it always does for me. I love it when, like, Giamatti is one of my all-time favorite actors. I just love the guy. And when I hear he's into that kind of stuff, when I see you talking to Thomas Jane, who I'm a big fan of, and then when I see Russel Crowe talking about this stuff, it just makes me feel like we're in good company.
Yeah, it does. And
it's what it does. It makes me go, yes.
But you know what something like this makes me do? In the same way that when, like, I was so impressed with Thomas Jane in his knowledge of the topic. Like he's
phenomenal.
He's not, I think that, and if you, and I spoke to, I obviously spoke to Thomas Jane a lot longer. I spoke to Thomas Jane for over an hour, and I spoke to Paul Giamatti at maybe 5 minutes at the Critics' Choice Awards about it. And Paul Giamatti is fascinated by it. I don't know if he's as locked in as, say, Thomas Jane is. And that might have changed over the course of, the last 6-7 months, whenever I spoke to him. But he's fascinated by it, right? And so the same goes for, like, what about Russel Crowe? And it's the same thing that I said to Thomas Jane that I would say to Russel Crowe is I hope that Steven Spielberg is looking up both of those guys for his next movie. And that kind of transitions us into our next story. And that is both Russel Crowe and Thomas Jane, even if they got it, they might not be the lead because it looks like Emily Blunt might be the lead of it. And here is the story that came out about that. Okay, Emily Blunt is in talks to star in Steven Spielberg's rumored UFO movie. Spielberg admires Blunt's work, making this potential collaboration exciting for both parties. Blunt's potential role in Spielberg's movie adds her impressive list of collaborations with acclaimed directors. She's in talks to join Spielberg's rumored UFO movie. The legendary director, known for Jaws, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, is working on his next project, which is reportedly a UFO movie, marking his return to the sci-fi genre after Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T., and War of the Worlds. The next Spielberg movie is based on his own original idea, though the script is written by his longtime collaborator, David Koepp, who previously penned Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and War of the Worlds. Now, Spielberg's rumored UFO movie might have just found its lead. According to Deadline, Blunt is in early talks to star in Spielberg's next movie, although an agreement has yet to be finalized. The project is described as a two-hander. So, Blunt would play one of the two leads. Though the report doesn't describe it as a UFO movie, it was reportedly... The project is described as a two-hander. So, Blunt would play one of the two leads. Though the report doesn't describe it as a UFO movie, it was previously reported that Spielberg's next project, written by Koepp, is a UFO film. Official plot details remain under wraps, though the movie is dated for a release on May 15th, 2026.
So, we have to wait a while.
Not too long. It's only 2 years, and that's like...
I know, and it's close to my birthday, so that's going to be a nice gift from Spielberg because I'm in honor of him today, wearing all my favorite movies on my body. This is fantastic. If he's getting back to, what I liked about Close Encounters, in particular, on this topic is that he kind of based it on some reality, and then we went, it went into. It was really realistic in its depictions, and it was very character based. Obviously, E.T. is just way out there as far as that's a very fictionalized fairy book story. It really is. It's a fairy tale. This, I'm wondering, what is he going to do?
What's he going to do? And
what's
if you
he
look
going to do? How is he going to do it?
He was on Colbert not too long ago, and they were talking about UFOs in general. And Spielberg is also another guy. Very well read up on it, is following it in general, is following the hearings, knows who Grusch is, knows who all these people is, knows the terms that it's UAP now. He's not just a kind of casual. He knows what is paying attention to stuff. He's talked to people inside. He had Hynek, who was a consultant on Close Encounters. Jaffalet was also there. So does he do that again for this one? Because as you were saying, Close Encounters was the more... when you listen to all the stuff that military has talked about, it seems more outside of the fantasy realm and more based in kind of the reality of what has been investigated / reported. So then now the question what kind of movie are we getting? And because it's coming out in 2026, the question also is like, what does Spielberg know? Does he know anything? Does he know anything else that's coming up? Does he know about, because what if there's more of this big disclosure stuff that kind of comes out in the next 2 years, and Spielberg has something completely different that he's written. It's just kind of a fantasy thing. But then there's some big game-changing thing that happens at some hearing, some witness, something to some that scenario that we just painted, you and I, just before about, okay, we know that we're not alone. The world is different now. Does his movie become different and face towards that, or is it already planning to be that in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. He's done 3 different kind of alien movies, right? Yeah. He's done the more grounded, realistic Close Encounters, which it's obvious from that movie how much he's been looking to the skies ever since day one. E.T., I call it a fairy tale. It's him dealing with the divorce of his own parents. It's through the eyes of Elliot and E.T. And then we have War of the Worlds. It was just straight up invasion, fantasy, epic, horror based.
Yeah.
When this was announced with Emily Blunt, I literally thought of the hearings in Oppenheimer, and her involvement and her being there for her husband and her, just crushing as an actress. And I thought, what if Spielberg goes into like disclosure hearings, UFOs, like something happens that's kind of fantasy based where we see it. Special effects are great. He's doing his Spielberg and like way of the camera. He's showing the reactions of the actors. And then Emily Blunt is like leading the charge to get this out there through disclosure, through Congress, and it becomes like a Oppenheimer, like he's done it with Amistad when he, on trials, he can do it all. Spielberg's my favorite director of all time, but I went there. I went to like, ooh, what if he does hearings? What if it's like fantasy meets reality, and it's like we see the UAPs, we see the UFOs, we see the people reacting to it, and Emily Blunt is now going in front of Congress saying, this has happened, we need disclosure, what do you know? And it becomes that story, it becomes a courtroom thriller at the end. And I don't know.
Well, no, but like piggybacking off of that, it's like, the idea of someone who works in the government that doesn't believe any of this stuff, that doesn't believe that it, it's a thing, that it's science fiction, and then essentially is almost like a David Grusch type character, and does discover this stuff, and then is tried to be silenced by the Men in Black and all these things, and going more, diving into the private companies and doing it that way, and really going, and going outside of just the fantasy realm of it. Because if you are into 2026 and you are trying to get more eyes on this thing, Spielberg doing another kind of alien invasion movie, I don't want to say it hurts it, but it adds to the science fiction side of it, to where a guy like Spielberg could add to the disclosure movement also, if he does a movie that is, and you want to make it entertaining, you don't want to make it boring, it's a Spielberg movie, you want to make it something, just super interesting. And I don't know, but with this cast, but the thing that he said in there, Riley, maybe going to my previous point, is that there's one of 2 leads, so maybe Russel Crowe will be in it.
Well, the two-hander, the 2 leads, one could be somebody that had the experience, a close encounter, as it will, and one could be the government person that doesn't believe this stuff, but then is tasked to bring it to Congress. I don't know. I mean, I love those stories.
Yeah,
I love those stories that bring 2 different viewpoints together, and they have to work together. I don't know where he's going with this. I don't see alien invasion because he's done that. I don't see E.T. because he's done that. I feel like this is him returning to a more Close Encounters kind of feel. Emily Blunt, you literally cast these movies to kind of represent your vision and bring a kind of a tone.
Right.
And Emily Blunt, for me, brings this kind of grounded, great actress, Oscar-winning actress, some legitimacy to like the idea to it. I mean, if he casts like Finn Wolfhard as the lead in this movie, I'm like, we're getting an E.T. movie, right? It's like, that's what it feels like. Russell Crowe, I could see again, Insider, him
like that kind of movie. That's
kind of movie, I could see that,
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. This is exciting, though.
It is. But this was exciting. And we got a chance to do our very first down to earth UAP Tuesday here moving it over from the other channel. The full list of all of the episodes is on this channel. You can find it in the playlist, but we are on Apple, we're on Spotify, on the Down to Earth feed. Every news piece that I do is on that feed, so if you want audio, you can do that. I will still have a news piece out a little later on today. So make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, man. We're trying to get to 50,000 subs. I think we can do it. We're getting the word out there. This is myself, Mark Riley, Pavel, Attack Peter, other guests that we have on the channel just to get the average person's point of view to ask those questions. But I'd like to thank Mark Riley for joining me here today. Mark, where can they find you, my friend?
Thank you. You can find me on the internet at Riley Around, REILLY Around. See you there.
Okay, so that's it. Thanks for joining us once again. We'll see you guys, well, we'll see you in a little bit for my news piece, and we'll see you back here again next Tuesday for UAP Tuesday. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you, and we'll see you on the flip side.